Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning back in. I am sitting here looking at subscriber questions, and I've got one that I get asked all the time. And it's a question that as an angler, we always ask other anglers. You know, we're very interested in knowing what the personal best is that you have caught with, respect to whatever species it is that you're fishing for. And for me, it's normally what's my biggest bass, a largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass, because those are predominantly the species that I fish for. And I think, a lot of the anglers out there want to know what the biggest fish are that other pros have caught. And I think, honestly, if you were to ask a lot of pros, you'd find that a lot of the personal bests are not as big as you'd think. For me, fishing mainly in the North Country, our largemouth do not get as big as the largemouth down south. In my opinion, a 6-pound largemouth that you catch in Wisconsin is the equivalent to a 10-pound largemouth that you would catch in, say, Florida. So, it's similar thing with smallmouth. Smallmouth for us in the North Country, a 6-pound smallmouth is like the equivalent to a 4-pound smallmouth that you catch in most lakes down south. So they're all kind of relevant based on where you're fishing and, where you're at in the country. I also think it matters just based on lakes. You go to some lakes and they have lots of giant fish. You go to other lakes where a 3-pounder is considered a giant fish. So if I were to say I caught a 4-pound largemouth on a lake that never produces fish over 3 pounds, that's like the same as saying I caught a 7-pounder on Lake Gunnersville. I mean, it's all relevant, guys, but it's a good question and it's a fun question and one that, I like to talk about. So I'm going to give you the brief history on mine because it is a question that I get asked all of the time. So let's start with, we'll start with largemouth. Largemouth, I have two 10.5-pound class fish. I have a 1064 that I caught in a bass open at Lake Chickamauga. That was done in, I want to say, early April. So that one was, great because it was in a tournament. However, it didn't win me big bass. Daryl Davis caught a 12-pounder that took big bass honors. I was the second biggest in the event, but it was still an awesome fish. And the other 10.5-pounder I caught in practice on Lake Chickamauga for a June tournament that was out there. And the cool thing with that fish is that fish was in about 3 feet of water. I caught it on a jig in an area that I was not expecting to catch a big fish like that. And that was the first 10-plus pounder that I had ever caught. Other than those, I've got, a handful of 8-pound class fish, but those two 10.5ers are by far my biggest largemouth personal bests. Spotted bass, well, I don't get to fish spotted bass nearly as much as a lot of you guys down south. So we don't have them up here in the North Country. I absolutely love chasing spotted bass. I think they are a super cool fish. And I think they fight great. They're kind of my equivalent to smallmouth, only in the South Country. So my personal best is 4 pounds and 15 ounces. So not a giant spotted bass, a really nice spotted bass, but not a crazy huge spotted bass. I caught that one at Smith Lake. That was also in an FLW tour event. So, it didn't win me big bass, but again, it was a huge fish in my bag and got me a good check in that event and a pretty cool fish. Most of my biggest spotted bass, I've caught lots of spotted bass in that 4.5 to 4 3/4 pound range. And the majority of them have either come from Smith Lake or Lake Lanier. Those are two of the best spotted bass lakes in the country and the two best spotted bass lakes that I have fished. So I've done, well on them, but I don't have any sort of crazy big spotted bass. The smallmouth personal best, I have caught 3 7.25-pound smallmouth, all super awesome fish. 2 of them I caught in tournaments out of Sturgeon Bay, Green Bay part of Lake Michigan. And those both were in tournaments, and in both instances, won big bass with those fish. Super nice fish. And this is kind of one of those things, guys, where it's all relevant based on where you're at. That's a huge smallmouth anywhere in the country, but in Sturgeon Bay, that's usually kind of what it takes to win big bass, especially in the spring. You're looking at fish pushing 7 pounds. So it's still considered a huge fish. I'm super happy to have those. The third smallmouth that I've caught that's 7¼ pounds, I had certified on a scale at 7.24 pounds. So literally I've got two 7-pound 4-ounce fish and one that was weighed at 7.24. So really they're all exactly 7¼ pounds. That one was caught on a spring break trip during college to Kentucky Lake in March. I caught it on a jerkbait, and it was an awesome, awesome fish, the biggest smallmouth I had ever seen at that point. You know, I was probably 20 years old. The funny thing with that fish is I went with my dad and one of my best friends, and my dad lost one off the same spot about 5 minutes later that was way bigger. I mean, we estimated that fish easily over 8 pounds. It was huge. That fish, we were in my dad's 16-foot sea nymph, and that fish got stuck on a rivet underneath the boat, and it ended up getting off. It was jumping on the other side of the boat, and you could feel the line stuck under the boat, and we were literally trying to net the fish on the other side of the boat because we knew it was stuck. It eventually broke the line off, and we did not land it. It was a giant fish. We got great looks at it, and I would have loved to have landed it. But those are my personal best, guys. So what are your personal bests? I want to hear what you guys have caught. Leave it in the comment section. You know, if you've got something that you want to put up and, you know, share about, please put it in there. I'd love to hear what you guys have. And, you know, I think those are all decent. I don't think they are, you know, extremely huge. And I expect at some point in my career, I will probably break most of those. And I hope I do. It kind of keeps me motivated to get out there and keep fishing for big fish. You know, I think most of you know that I would give up numbers any day to chase giants. And that's what I really like to do, especially for smallmouth. In the North Country, there's just, the population continues to get bigger, continues to get better, and it's it won't be long, in my opinion, before the Wisconsin state record smallmouth is broken, which is, I believe, 9-pound 2-ounce, 9-pound 3-ounce, somewhere right in there. But there are a lot of really big fish that are starting to get pumped out. I think we're kind of seeing that all across the country, regardless of species. Spotted bass, largemouth, smallmouth are all really doing well, and that has to do with you guys out there who are practicing catch and release. I think as anglers, we're getting better in terms of taking care of the fish. We're also getting significantly better in understanding the fish and finding where they're holding and catching them. So I think at one point, a lot of those bigger fish kind of got offshore and did their own thing, and they were not as easy to find. But with today's more modern techniques and advancements in the sport, it seems like we're catching a lot more bigger fish. So I think we're going to see a lot of state records get broken, potential world records. You never know. I would expect maybe another world-class spotted bass to get caught, maybe from out west on some of those lakes, or even a smallmouth. You know, that population's booming. I don't see a record largemouth being caught anytime soon in our country, potentially overseas. But you never know. There's big ones out there. So guys, I hope this answers the questions that you had. Stay tuned. We have new tips and tricks that come on a daily basis. If you enjoy the channel, hit that subscriber button, hit the like button, and tune in tomorrow for another tip. Thanks for watching.